Hey, what's up everyone, it's Justin here, and today I've got the review for you of the Oppo R5, one of the thinnest mobile smartphones on the market. So as smartphones have been getting thinner and thinner as time goes on, Oppo has taken it to another level, making a smartphone that is just 4.85mm thick with a very small number of trade-offs as opposed to a traditional smartphone. Starting out with the specs, the R5 runs a Qualcomm Snapdragon 615 octa-core processor clocked in at 1.5 GHz with 2 GB of RAM, a 13 megapixel Sony Exmor censored camera, a 5.2-inch AMOLED display with a resolution of 1920 by 1080 and a PPI of 423, and somehow they fit in a 2000 mAh battery with the VOOC fast charging technology as well. So after playing around with this device for a bit, it feels somewhat strange but amazing in the hand. It is a bit like a biscuit. A smartphone coming in at just 4.85mm thick is just crazy to think about, especially with how much technology that has gone into packing everything into this smartphone. And that stainless steel construction is not only extremely durable, but allows you to appreciate the beauty of the device itself. But with a smartphone this thin, it is very prone to drops, but a good thing is that Oppo has included a screen protector that is pre-installed perfectly, as well as a polycarbonate case to protect it. From looking at the videos on Apple's YouTube channel though, it seems like they put these devices through extreme testing, and I have to agree with the fact that this device is built very solid and is extremely durable. On the bottom you will find your micro USB port for charging and syncing, and on one side you will find your volume rockers and power buttons. But one thing you may have noticed is that there isn't any space for a 3.5mm headphone jack, so you're going to have to use Oppo's included adapter that allows you to use the micro USB port to adapt it to a 3.5mm headphone jack, which is probably the biggest trade-off of this smartphone, as you're going to have to remember to bring that everywhere if you want to listen to your music. When it comes to the display, I have to say it looks pretty good. At 1920 by 1080 resolution, it still brings a PPI over 400, but most of all, the colors look very vibrant but accurate at the same time. And at 5.2 inches, I felt that it was a good sweet spot for most people out there. The viewing angles were also really good. So now on to the software. The Oppo R5 is running on Android 4.4 base Color OS, which is a skin that Oppo has developed. However, they do support rooting on their devices without voiding the warranty, and they always try to have third-party ROMs available for use as well, so that's great. From using the Color OS, I found everything to be extremely simple, and there really isn't much going on at all. Everything seemed to be very fluid, but one thing I wasn't a big fan of at all was the icons in my personal opinion. With the lack of app drawer, it sort of reminds me of iOS, however you do have the ability to add widgets of course. And I also really like the way that the notification pull down works. There is your quick toggle settings that you use the most on the first row, and you can also slide down and reveal the rest. Of course you also have your brightness settings, which is something I use quite a bit. So I like the way that they have kept it where you have the settings that you need, but it isn't too cluttered at all. Moving on to the settings, everything is very easy to access, being split into 3 different categories, whether it is general settings, sound, and display, so you can quickly navigate to where you need to be with these dividers. But talking about Color OS as a whole, I find it a little bit too simple for my liking, but it really comes down to personal preference, but everything seems to be very snappy and responsive, which is great. Moving on to the camera app, if you slide down from the bottom point, it will show some of your different modes, whether it's the Ultra HD, the Colorful Night, Expert Mode, etc. And on the top right, it will show all of your major camera settings, whether it is the video and camera settings. Once again, everything is very simplistic and easy to access. When it came to the gaming performance, the Oppo R5 seemed to perform very well, and I didn't notice any stutters or lag at any point. The device being so thin also makes it very nice to hold in the hand and gripping it while you're gaming. Coming to the camera, the Oppo R5 features a 13 megapixel rear-facing camera with a Sony Exmor sensor with the ability to record 1080p video, and on the front you've got a 5 megapixel front-facing camera. Taking a look at the photos it took, it definitely did a pretty good job. You can see that the colors are extremely vibrant, perhaps a little bit too vibrant at some extent. And with the Pure Image 2.0 technology from Oppo, the results in general were pretty good. However, in some occasions you would notice some noise in the background or a slight vignetting going around the subject. But for a mid-range smartphone, it definitely exceeded my expectations. Moving on to the video test, I have to say I wasn't too impressed. I noticed that everything seemed a little bit underexposed and I didn't really get the pop factor that I expected even out of 1080p. But that being said, it isn't horrible, it's just not great. The speakers on the Oppo R5 are located on the front, and it shares the same speaker for media that you would use for calling. They are a set of mono speakers and are front facing, but the quality isn't anything to be overly amazed about, but the fact that they are front facing is great. So now on to the battery life. The Oppo R5 features a surprising 2000 mAh battery, and I'm just impressed that Oppo was able to pack that into a device that measures in at just 4.85 millimeters thick. The battery life in general was impressive, easily able to get about 7 hours in a day, and there is also the VOOC fast charging technology from Oppo, which I have to say is the best fast charging technology out there, getting you 75% of charge in just 30 minutes, and all the necessary cables are included. In the event where you can't find anywhere to plug your device in, however, there is the super power saving mode to maximize the battery life of your Oppo R5. But now it's time to give you guys my final conclusion of the Oppo R5, and I have to say this device is absolutely beautiful, and for a lot of people it is irresistible as to how thin it is. When using the device, it was snappy in general, it has a great battery life, and the display is pretty nice as well. But if you're someone who finds the camera a very important aspect, or cannot get over the fact that it does not have a 3.5mm headphone jack built in, I suggest you to look over to something like the Oppo N3. This just naturally isn't the device for everyone, and more for someone who really wants and appreciates the thin form factor of the smartphone. But other than that, I hope you enjoyed this video, and a huge thanks to Oppo for sending this out for reviewing purposes, and I'll see you all in the next video.